well, it takes a definite precision, because you are playing with machines and it's very syncopated, and those machines that are syncopated are right on the money. So you can't casually just be like floating around it, and that makes it difficult. But yeah, to play with a click to this stuff is, or even just to play with these tracks. I want to play for you an example of a drum break that's commonly used in this style, and play you like basically the original tempo that it was at, then play you the tempo that it's usually used in this genre, and then play you a track of a tune in that genre that's utilizing these drum breaks. What I'm going to play you is, I think, a 2 or 3 bar drum break at the regular tempo, then sped up, and then what guys do, let me give you an example real quick. I'm going to leave this on. What programmers do, and I'm trying to duplicate this drumistically. Oh, I don't need the headsets. Like if you're going to take a pattern that just goes like this, okay. Okay, if that's your drum loop, guys will, does everyone know what a sampler is? I'm going to bring it down to, I don't want to just assume that like everyone goes, oh, okay, you sample that, and does everyone, a sampler is a machine that you can record, it's basically a recorder, and then you can re-trigger it and program it and use it as you would any other sort of keyboard or drum machine sound. The guys would sample a 1 bar loop, so something like that again. Okay, then they will take that loop and cut it. A lot of times they will cut it into quarter note pieces. So you'll have one piece that just sounds like this, and you'll hit a key on your keyboard and you'll just get, they'll cut the second second chord note, which would be, okay, so you'd have, I'm trying to remember the pattern I played. Third piece will be again like this, and the fourth piece will be again. So they will take these pieces and sometimes cut them up even into smaller fragments of 8th notes, or sometimes just extract just the snare hit or just the ghost hit, and reprogram these patterns to get different syncopations off the pattern. So what I'm going to play you is an example of that as well. Jungle stuff. This is almost like a sax player knowing how to solo over giant steps. I mean, that's like one of the standard breaks that people steal and use for the tune. So, but that's the original tempo pretty much of what the drummer played it on a recording by a group called the Winstons, like in 1971. That was the tempo it was at, which is a little more human, a little more doable. And what they've done with it is jacked it up considerably, so I'm going to play you that right now. Okay, so when that happens, it's sort of like, you know, speed on your tape recorder on your turntable going from 33 to 45, and everything gets sped up. And hence, that's why my drum is 10 inches and not 14, and that's what, you know what I mean, to try to get that sped up sound. So now what I have on tape is those little pieces, those little fragments, a couple of those pieces, just so you can get an idea of what these pieces are when they're cut up. That's one piece. Another piece. Okay, so it sounds really stupid, but these pieces are then repeated and reprogrammed. Like, for example, if one piece, and this is what makes it hard for drummers to have to play something like this. If you take just that second piece, this, or I think this is something like the second piece, okay? But if you repeat that, it's going to be, okay? So you got like, okay, and a lot of drum programming in this genre is based on repeating a lot of these pieces, and you'll get rhythms that just sound like they're skipping or they're repeating, and that's very much a technique used in this programming. So us as drummers might be playing this and realizing that it's a little unorthodox, because sometimes you'll have like more than 2 notes in the left hand on a very drumistic technical level. You'll realize that, wait a minute, this is something we don't normally do, okay? Because if you played something like this, okay, that might be pretty common to play, but if you were to just cycle that second part, you got like 3 notes in the left hand with the second note accented, and that's not the most conventional thing to play. It's not the easiest thing to play. It's to go and to do it with the same almost control of a machine, which does it the same way every single time. You know what I mean? So it's not something like playing double strokes and kind of wishy-washing, you know. You want to make them where every double stroke set, if you're going to play that repetitive, where they kind of sound the same or as close to the same. So that's the whole challenge with this. But I'm going to play you a tune that incorporates this drum loop, and you'll hear how the variations lead to a lot of different stuff. Times in there, I noticed 3 bass drums in a row, and that's what makes it hard for drummers, because we wouldn't think of playing certain things like that. But the reason that they get these patterns like that is because they can, you know, because it's no skin off their back. They're not slaving to play it literally, but you get some weird combinations when you chop things up and rearrange the pieces, and it's definitely a challenge to being able to recreate that, and I'm working on that side of things as well. But first and foremost, you notice how the drums don't sound like conventional drums because they're sped up, although originally it came from a drum groove that was physically played by a human being on a regular sounding drum set. But it's been manipulated so much and resampled and added with effects and re-EQ'd and re-pitched and re-everything that it sounds quite electronic. But to try to bring it back now, a lot of people say, why are you, it's so weird to have cymbals that are trying to sound like machines when drum machines cymbals are trying to sound like real cymbals, and now you're trying to sound like machine cymbals. But I think it's kind of cool to try to, the machines have definitely influenced drumming. I don't think that's what they set out to do. They set out to replace drums and sort of convince the listener that they were hearing sort of drums. But and we're seeing a trend now, like drum machines that were not very popular when they came out, or were not as desirable at the time, like Roland TR-808s, and Roland made a bunch of old gear, something called the TB-303, and it was a bass synthesizer that I guess was meant to, you know, reproduce bass lines, but it had a real synthetic feel and sound. And they sold for like $200 or $300 when they came out. It's a little box, a little gray box. Now they're selling used for about $1,500. Because they're hot again. And now they're making all these sort of synths right now, all the companies, and even computer software is coming out. There's a thing called Rebirth that's supposed to emulate the TR-808 drum machine and the TB-303 bass line. And it's just so funny how something that was considered corny or wasn't cutting the mustard or whatever has now become so popular. But hold on, if anyone's got that stuff, hold on to it. Or maybe sell it now, because maybe it'll be out of style in a couple of years. But in any event, so that's sort of the premise behind how this stuff is programmed and produced, and definitely the key ingredients that the drums are very syncopated and also not at their normal pitch. So a couple of you guys said you've sort of been familiar with the style, right? I'm just curious to see what you've heard of it, or any albums specifically off the top of your heads that you guys listen to. Anything particular? No. Just like heard it in a club or on a BMW commercial or what have you? Yeah?
A question. Okay, say a band, you look at a band like U2, and they're like going into all this electronic sounds now.
Yeah, they are. I haven't heard the latest stuff, but I've been told that, yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of the stuff sounds like just what you're playing.
Okay.
And so, well, but if you haven't heard it, then you haven't heard it. But I mean, I'm just saying, it sounds similar.
Yeah.
Like that type of techno type beat.
Right. Yeah, U2 has been doing it. David Bowie did it recently. Madonna's last album.
Eric Clapton's new single, actually.
Eric Clapton's new single, I heard also, will have that.
Has that electronic feel to it. Was it She's Gone, I think is the name.
Something like that. I'd heard about that. It's getting more and more popular. And even in New York, where you'd figure like New York is doing a lot of this stuff, even in New York, it's not really big yet. In the UK, you go over to London, and I got turned on to this music from a friend of mine about 2 years ago, and I went over there 2 years ago to London, and you know, everyone knew what it was. But back in the States, here, it's not big yet. It's getting there, and it's still kind of underground, but it will definitely get here if it hasn't already. But it's getting here. So.
Do you find that it gets repetitive to play this stuff over and over again, or is it more of a challenge and you don't look at it as kind of, as my personal opinion, I've never been a big fan.
Okay.
It just seems like it, you know, drum and bass seems so repetitive that it doesn't break anywhere. You know what I mean? And I can see that, you definitely need some skill to be able to hang with this stuff if you're playing an acoustic kit live with samples and sequences and so forth. Like, do you find that you search for other outlets to kind of, break out of this mold?
Okay, well, like anything else, you mentioned the word jazz to people, and some people say Kenny G. You know what I mean? Some people say Miles Davis. Some people say the Rippingtons. I don't know. Everyone's got their definition. Same thing with this stuff. What I just played you right now, and I don't want to insult the artist who I was playing, and to be quite honest with you, it's off a compilation, and I think I know who it is, but anyway, this might be the more friendly jungle stuff, what we're listening to right now. There is stuff by guys like Aphex Twin, a guy named Plug, a guy named Square Pusher, that's like, is jazz to somebody Kenny G or is it Ornette Coleman? You know what I mean? There's two sides. Same with this stuff. And so to answer your question, there's stuff in this genre that's less popular, of course, just like Ornette Coleman's less popular than Kenny G, but there's stuff in this genre that's ridiculously varying, incessant change. I mean, more so than in any other style I've ever heard. There's nuances, bar to bar is different. And, and a lot of those guys don't even want to be termed as jungle drum and bass just because the style that most people hear is the repetitive drum loop that keeps going and meandering for the dance clubs. The stuff I'm talking about is very out there and might not be suitable for most listening audiences, but it's out there. I mean, people are putting out recordings. A guy named Fotek, he takes a lot of great drum programming, drum stuff, and there's always some sort of variance. And what's really great about this stuff is there's not only variance rhythmically, but there's sonic variance, like filters put through the drums or multi-effects put through the drums, and that's something I'm working on. I have some effects here, but I don't have control to them, and I didn't get enough of a chance to really mess around with getting that together, but there's many things you could do. I'm working on back at home with foot switches to turn effects on and off and to change patches so that you'll go from a gated reverb to a delay to something that's more like a distortion effect, and you can change that up even for a bar or two. And it's a lot easier when you program this because you don't have to do it in real time, and you can say, okay, bar 46 of this sequence and the sequence, let's insert this effect, or let's bring, there's just so much that can be done that, me personally, I mean, I would have to say that the drum programming on this stuff that I've been checking out has been more inspiring to me these days than any live drummer could do. Where I go and hear live drummers and I go, is that all you could do? You know what I mean? And it is all they could do in a way. There's just so much great stuff that could be done with the programming. And I think more importantly, what is going to happen is you're going to just need some complementary drums with this other programming. Do you know what I mean? And bands are going out where they have the loops playing and they just want the drummer to sort of reinforce that with something over the top. And yeah, just add a sort of more live sound, but you don't have to go as nuts as the drum programming that's part of this music. But I'm starting to see there are live drummers playing to these loops, and you know, not trying to always emulate the loops, but sort of just counteract them. And a lot of this music, when you go hear it live, it's strange. You'll see these guys, and they don't even play with mixing boards. I mean, they don't even play with, they don't even play with instruments. They play with mixing boards. They come out, they have their stuff on ADATs or on computers, and they just do live mixes on stage. And there's a big light show and slides going on in the back or some sort of animation. And all their music is pre-programmed, and they're just basically doing a live mix. And I've worked with some guys who do this, and there really is, you know, you may say, okay, it's just a mixing board, but there's a true art to this, the same way there's an art to playing an instrument. And a lot of DJs who spin this stuff, I've been meeting a couple of guys, and what they do is really amazing. I mean, they'll take an ambient tune that doesn't have drums, and then like a specific album that has a lot of drums, and they'll do live mixes back and forth and create sort of a complete piece of music from 2 records. And you know, years ago I thought a DJ just put on a record and, you know, just waited around till the next one was ready to go. But there's a whole thing going on with this that's really creative and inspiring. I mean, I go and listen to this more than I listen to, you know, just standard configurations of stuff. So, but there's a group called Propeller Heads that go and they play over their own loops, and it sounds great. Drummer plays, he has his turntables, he plays his music, and then he runs to the drum set and plays over the top of them, and that sounds really great. And you know, I'm starting to see a lot more of this, but for me, it's very inspiring. It's definitely a lot more inspiring than the last 10 years of music that I've heard prior. I think this is finally something fresh. A lot of people are uninspired. I was uninspired for a long time, and I'm totally inspired, so much so that it's like I'm manic about it. So, and it's an uneasy feeling, being too excited, but that's where I'm at right now, even though I'm boring everybody to tears. But anyway, yes, sir.
You're touching on that kid just, I think it was like maybe 3 weeks ago, because I thought I heard everything there is to hear, and he came up to me and said, have you heard of this jungle music or whatever? So I said, no, what is it? Kind of, you know, I know a lot of rhythms, comes to melody. He says, well, I can't do it. I just got to let you, you know, let you listen to the tape. So I took the tape home. And the first part of it was kind of jazzy. Then it broke out into something just, I was like, whoa. So I just mashed up, you know, got in touch with the next day, returned this tape back. But then when I got my invitation that you were going to be here, and I've been listening to you for a long time with the Chuck Lowe stuff, and Cranston, and to see that, you know, it kind of brought back like, whoa, what's what the jungle stuff, now that, you know, you're doing a clinic on it, it's kind of different. Yeah. And so how long has jungle music been out?
Okay, yeah. The UK has been doing, the guys in the UK have been doing this for maybe 6, 7 years already. I got turned on to it about 2 years ago. And at that point, it had already been around 2, 3 years easily. So it definitely 5 years, but it kind of like any other style evolved. Before jungle, there was sort of like pre-techno-y jungle stuff, you know, and stuff that maybe right now could, even though it was called techno then, maybe you can call it jungle now, and all these labels they give to this stuff, hardcore and jump up and raga and blah, 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 there's all these names, and a lot of guys will go, oh yeah, well the distinction is with this, it's that, and hardcore it's this, and jump step and hard this, and blah, 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 you know. I think it's a marketing, you know, ploy, of course, but a DJ friend of mine was funny because he said he went to a record store and he saw, like, a DJ would put on a record and they go, nah, I'm not digging this. You know, I put on a record sounded identical. It's like, now that's the stuff I'm digging. You know, this is hardcore. Like, meanwhile, he didn't even know the difference between the two styles. It's pretty funny all the names they give to this. But I'd say it's been around an easy 6, 7 years.
Are you getting any flack from other drummers, you know, doing this type of music?
Not a lot of guys are doing this yet.
Right. Okay.
Yet is the word.
Damon, you have
They
a
will.
149.
And
Damon, 149.
as far as getting flack for what, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I mean, well, because I mean, you do a lot of fusion,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
From a traditional standpoint, this is not,
Right.
you know, this is not conventional drumming by any means.
No, it's not. Thank God. For me, I play the drums, and playing, like even that little solo I took, I wish I didn't have to take that solo, you know, and I don't know if I just, for me, it's like I don't want to move forward with stuff, you know, and I've been listening to this stuff for the last couple of years. I've been programming a lot of it, and I still get called to do sessions where it requires a more standard thing. And being a sideman, your job is to do what you're called to do, and I'll gladly play what's required. I'm not going to like play this stuff over a session that I should be playing differently over. So I'll respect all genres of music, but for me, if I was going to come out with something on my own as a leader or be involved in something with a group of guys, I would want to make it something that was refreshing for me to do. And right now it's that. I mean, I'm in a rock band right now that's coming out in a couple of weeks with a record called Vaganza, and their music is very like Queen meets Frank Zappa, and it's like glam rock coming back again. And I'm part of that. But what I really like about that is, well, there'll be costumes and makeup, and you know, so we'll see how that works with me. But I'm kind of looking forward to that. But it's kind of, in a weird way, the music is challenging, and I get to I like to, and this has been happening for me for a couple of years, and this is why this Bluth CD came out. I've been wanting to play the drums in a funny way for a long time, in a comedic way, and I think I'm going to bring this tune out in a minute. I'm going to just let it fly and see what happens. But I like playing drums in a funny, comedic way and doing little fills that sound out of place or stupid, you know, for the effect. I really enjoy doing that. That's you know, that's inspiring for me. So this band Vaganza kind of wants me to do that. So I said, hey, I'll do this gig. This is great. So I'm doing that, and I'm also playing with a lot of different other little projects that are, you know, a little more what you'd call traditional or the norm, and not to insult those people who are, you know, not that their music's normal, but, you know, more conventional style drumming with their regular sized drum set. But for me, I'm just happy doing something where I can experiment. I mean, I almost was going to tape this tom up to sound like cardboard for the sound. I mean, I was going to do this and mic that in a certain way and EQ it and put a certain effect on it and get creative. We didn't have a lot of time where I could really get in there and mess around with that, but that's what I was thinking about, making these drums sound like awful. At the sound check they were saying, wait a minute, your snare sounds like there's no body or tie. I said, great. I said, keep it there, you know what I mean? Like, your bass drum sounds like crap. I said, good. I said, that's what we're going for. You know? I said, do you have any ideas to make it sound worse? Let's do that. You know, that's what I was hoping for. But they put a muffler in there and made it sound a little bit more like a bass drum. But I'm ready for it to sound like anything. So I'm going to try these tunes. And I've never played with this tune before. It's called the Boom Tune. But it's going to start off with another track more in this sort of, I call this a fusion techno tune that I'm about to play, but then it goes into a tune called the Boom Tune. I just want to brief you what you're going to hear because it's so bizarre, just so you realize it is and you don't go, wait a minute, this is weird. It is weird. A friend of mine named Pete Davenport, who's in this band Bluth, who wanted to come on this trip with me, and he would have been a barrel of laughs, and I wish he was here, but I don't know how this came about, but in essence what it is the way drummers sort of try to sing things that other drummers play, like, you know, the drummer you play, I heard him play, was like, oh, da, 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 you know, we took it to an extreme and really had fun with it and got really crazy with it. And another thing about this track, it's the second part of the track I'm going to play with, is I like playing drums with things that's in a way that sounds, it's not subdivisions. Let me explain this real quick, just so when I do it, you'll understand. Subdivisions, like when people play and you have your quarter note, a subdivision would be any sort of equal grouping within that quarter note. So if you have 16th notes, those are 4 equal notes. You have triplets, it'd be, you know, they're all equal. So most, I'd say, conventional way of playing is to play with some form of subdivision, no matter what you do, or combinations of subdivisions. Like if I'm going to go, I'm just going between triplets and 16ths and 32nds or what have you. But then there's also a way that I like to play where I'm just keeping still a quarter note pulse or referring to one if I'm not actually marking time on the hi-hat, but playing a little bit more free within those quarter note pieces. So almost where it might sound like you're stretching time or bending the beat, or playing like you're throwing a pile of books down a staircase or something like that. And I like to do that as well. So a lot of this tune, the second half of this tune, is going to feature drumming that sounds like that. But it's not purposely playing bad. It's that I'm actually not randomly hitting things. I'm hearing this stuff, which is quite scary to even myself. This is what I'm hearing in my head. And a lot of people have asked me, is this something that is a certain grouping or subdivision? And anything, I'll tell you right now, can be transcribed. I knew a guy who transcribed fireworks. He put a click to it and he transcribed it. And anything can be transcribed. It might be outrageous groupings of, you know, weird, like a group of 17 notes over 3 beats, with beats 3, 16, and 17 being accented. But if I'm playing something like that, you got to understand, I'm not thinking of it like that. I'm hearing a phrase and hearing time over the phrase and trying to group like that. So I'm going to give this tune a whirl. It's very bizarre, and we'll see what happens. Now, this mix, just so you know. Okay. This mix does not have a backwards. Both channels can go through the main. It's a stereo mix. And there's no click, and it's just a simple. I guess just getting the level on my phones.